In this video, we're going to take a look at what's involved in getting your home studio properly set up so that your mixing position is oriented properly in your room, and your room is treated to help combat the effects of things like phase cancellations, comb filtering, and standing waves. By the end of this video, you'll be able to apply these methods to your own room and reward yourself with cleaner, more compelling recordings and mixes. Ready to get started? Someone hit record. Hi kids, my name is Merlin, and I'd like to welcome you to Better Home Recordings. Today we're going to take a look at room setup and treatment. What is it? What does it affect? And why do you need to address it sooner than later? At the end of this video, I'll have a Better Home Recording super tip that will elevate you to room setup and treatment order of Merlin. So be sure to stick around for that super handy tip. Let's talk about your mixing position. What do you do with a blank canvas? Where on earth do you start? Getting yourself oriented the correct way in your new home studio is critical to determining the quality of your recordings and your future success. It's very easy to do it the wrong way and to cause all kinds of problems for yourself. However, with the following simple pieces of advice, you can save yourself a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of heartache. First, let's take a look at determining the ideal mix position for your room. If you have a rectangular room, you want your mixing desk and speakers so that they face down the long part of the room. Try to avoid setting up so your speakers fire across the short dimension of your room, as this will potentially cause a greater amount of reflections and phase cancellation off the back wall. Don't worry though, if you have to use the short wall, it's not a deal breaker, just something you need to be aware of and plan for accordingly with additional room treatment. If you have a square room, pick whichever wall you want to face and maintain symmetry along that wall, meaning keep yourself and your mix position centered on the wall. Square rooms are definitely more of an acoustic challenge, but it's not impossible to make a square room sound decent. Whatever you do though, do not mix with your back against the wall. The reflections coming from the wall immediately behind you will just be impossible to control and will make your listening position unbearable and totally inaccurate. When figuring out where your mix position should be, follow what's known as the 38% rule. Calculate 38% of your room's length and put a mark at that distance from the front wall, centered widthwise between the left and right walls. That's where your head should be while mixing. For example, if your room is 8 feet by 12 feet, then you want to make sure that you're seated so your head is approximately 4.5 feet from the wall in front of you, assuming you're mixing down the 12-foot wall. If you have to situate your mix position along the 12-foot wall, firing across the 8-foot length, the 38% rule will put your mix position at approximately 3 feet into the room. As you can see, this will have you sitting pretty close to the front wall and won't leave a lot of room to set up your computer and mixing desk. Again, not a deal breaker, but not really ideal either. Once you determine where your head should be situated in the room for mixing, your monitor speaker should be set up in an equilateral triangle with your head at ear level. That means that if your speakers are 3.5 feet from each ear, they should also be 3.5 feet from each other. If you get your speakers too far apart, your mix image will become vague and it will be hard to hear properly. It will also make your mix position more susceptible to unwanted artifacts, which we'll discuss here in a moment. While this next subject could take up a video on its own, I do want to spend some time on room absorption and reflection control in your studio. Proper use of absorption and reflection control material in your home studio will help you avoid the effects of nasty artifacts like phase cancellation, standing waves, and comb filtering. These gremlins can cause your mix to be muddy, overly bright, too bassy, or a combination of all those undesirable things. It will help you to more easily dial things in quickly and accurately, allow you to create better home recordings, and to produce cleaner and more compelling mixes that translate better to the outside world. So, what type of material do you need? Foam or acoustic panels? Foam is less expensive, it's lighter, and generally easier to install. Foam panels are a definite consideration if you're on a budget, and they do work well to control unwanted reflections. However, in my opinion, they're generally not as aesthetically pleasing as acoustic panels. Plus, from personal experience, I can tell you that foam panels are giant collectors of dust. They can be really hard to keep clean. They do work as advertised though, so don't get me wrong. You'll just be spending a lot of time and effort trying to keep them clean. Or not, if that's your thing. Acoustic panels, on the other hand, generally have better absorption qualities than foam, as they are built from more dense materials such as mineral wool, fiberglass, cellulose, open cell foam, or a combination of those materials. They are then generally wrapped with a fabric and usually come in different colors to complement your decor. They look nicer than most foam panel kits do, but you will pay a small premium for them. They're not outrageously priced though. I've used the Prime Acoustic London 8 kit here in my studio with great results for only $250. One of the biggest challenges to setting up any room for proper mixing is the control of standing waves. Standing waves occur when two waves of identical frequencies interfere with one another while traveling in opposite directions. Their two energies are either added together or they cancel each other out. If you walk around your mix space, you can probably hear the effects of standing waves, particularly in the low frequency area due to the size and length of the physical sound wave itself. You will either hear the bass just go away, or you will hear a great preponderance of bass, depending upon where you're positioned in relation to the standing wave. If your mix position happens to coincide with one of these standing wave peaks or nulls, you can easily understand how detrimental that can be to your mixes, as you will either be adding too much bass in your mixes to compensate or cutting too much out. High frequencies, while they also can create standing waves, are much shorter in length, and standing waves in those frequencies are much less apparent and nowhere near as distracting as low frequency standing waves. The solution to controlling these low frequency standing waves are called bass traps. Bass traps are designed specifically to control low frequency wavelengths and are generally located in the front quarters of your room and usually run from floor to ceiling. They are generally either a trapezoidal design or a thicker flat panel that fills the corner diagonally, creating an air gap behind it. In my opinion, controlling low frequency standing waves is a lot more important than controlling every last room reflection you have. Add bass traps first, and then add reflection and absorption control as your budget allows. So, how much coverage do you need? Generally, for most music types, you want to look at anywhere between 50 and 75% absorption coverage in your studio. You have to be careful not to put too much absorption material in your studio, or it will become overly dead sounding. This generally creates an environment too sterile to record in. Dead rooms create dead recordings. So you want to have a nice mix of absorption and reflection happening. As for placement of materials, you'll want to concentrate initially on controlling the reflections directly to the sides of your mixing position. You can do that with the mirror trick. That's where you sit in your mix position and have a friend run a mirror along the side walls. Anywhere you can see the reflection of the front of your monitor speakers is where you want to place some absorption. That will at least solve some of the early reflection problems. This also works for the ceiling, which is important as well, particularly if you have a lower ceiling. Further absorption materials can be placed on the wall behind you, the back wall, and to a lesser degree, the walls behind your speakers, the front wall. This will greatly add to controlling those unwanted reflections and phase cancellations. A quick note about front wall absorption. I see a lot of home studios on the internet where the owners have absolutely plastered the front wall with absorption material. While you do want to control early reflections as much as possible, creating a completely dead space where your speakers are located makes for an unrealistic listening experience. Again, dead rooms make for dead recordings. Keep your front wall absorption to a minimal level and concentrate on the side and rear wall reflections, and you'll find your mix experience much more pleasurable. Okay, now where do you get all this stuff? There are several well-known manufacturers of acoustic absorption material for recording studios, with Prime Acoustics, Auralex, and GIK Acoustics among the most popular. Most of them offer individual pieces of absorption and pre-packaged kits designed for various sized rooms, and also have software available to help you calculate what type of acoustic treatment your room needs. If you can't find these items at your local music store, then check with places online like Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Amazon, and other music retailers. I put links in the description. One more important thing to understand: room absorption is not the same thing as soundproofing. If you're trying to soundproof your room in order to isolate it from your immediate surroundings, other rooms in your house, the neighbors, etc., these absorption techniques will not help you. Soundproofing is almost strictly construction related. For example, building floating floors, walls within walls. And again, these absorption materials will not soundproof your room. And now it's time for your Better Home Recording super tip. Here's a little mixing trick I discovered that will help you a lot. Keep your room's door open while you're mixing with speakers. This will help minimize some of the reflections in the room and also help relieve some of the buildup of the low-end energy due to standing waves. If you live in the country with some space around you, open up the windows as well. Well, at least on nice days. I do suggest doing this only when your housemates aren't home or if your neighbors don't mind listening to you work. Congratulations, you've now earned your Room Setup and Treatment Order of Merlin. I'm so glad you stopped by today. If you have any questions on anything discussed in this video or would like to suggest a subject for a future video, please leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. That's it for now, kids. I hope to see you again soon, and remember, the first rule of better home recordings is there are no rules. Be sure to check out my other videos that you'll find useful for your home studio here. And please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fun and information. I would very much appreciate your continued support. See you soon.